Hey, this is Jim from Jim's Holiest of Coleus. Welcome aboard. How you doing? Let's straighten this out a little bit here. Just wanted to shoot out a quick video. What's life like when you're trying to raise 500-600 Coleus plants in your home? When you work, number one, and I work nights, so I do like a policeman schedule. 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. I do night shifts, and but it's not complaining. It's something I've been doing a long time. Anyway, it's a lot of work. I try to keep up on the house and the dogs, the Yorkies. And if you ever had a Yorkie, Yorkies are really, they're something. They require lots of attention. So let me go take care of him. I'll be right back. Okay, so here we are. We're back. Apologize for the lighting. I'm getting a little washed out from the sun. I have such an open airy house, it's hard to find a place that's not, that doesn't have a lot of sun. Anyway, I'm gonna, just went over all my Coleus plants. It's been a very mild winter here in New Jersey, and the sun, now as we start to get into closer to spring, the days are getting longer, the sun is getting more intense. My bay window, let's turn this around, is getting more and more sunlight, although I want to say it's direct, intense sun, because obviously in the winter, the sun, the angles and so forth, we're going to get into astronomy, but it's not like that really direct, strong summertime sun where we got to put the shades down, but it comes in and floods the Coleus with a fairly significant amount of sun and heat. So it can dry out the pots fast. I try to keep up on the watering. And I mentioned, don't let your Coleus dry out. Don't let that cycle begin. Don't try to let your pots completely dry out over and over, because that's going to lead to unhealthy Coleus. I mean, we're all human. We got lives and so forth. Our plants, as much as we love them, unfortunately aren't always at the top priority unless it's your bread and butter and your business. But try to keep them watered. If you skip a day or two here or there, that's fine. But like I said, so I'm just going to shoot a quick video, and the Coleus have really progressed nicely. They're growing. They look really, really nice. I can't wait until spring, until it's warm enough where I can get them out to the greenhouse. That's where the real magic begins, when we start getting into the real hot but humid weather. Your Coleus will look really nice, but when that hot, real humid weather kicks in, I mean, I'm talking about those nights that you're like, oh my God, it's disgusting out there. That's Coleus weather. That's where they're raised. They're tropical plants. They love that cold. They love that humidity and that moisture. So that's when they start to really take off. Like my outdoor planters, when we start getting into that really hot, humid weather in the summer, and it's like overnight, they just explode because they just love it. They really thrive on that. So I try to recreate that, and that's like the indoor greenhouse sort of makes up that kind of microcosm, environment, that humid condition which they thrive on. So anyway, just going to show you how well they look. They really, even since last week, they really look nice. They're growing well. I don't have to worry too much about nutrition because I'm using the time-release fertilizer, using good quality Miracle-Gro soil. So I'm just going to show you now a few of the pots, because of the sun and the heat from the heat register in that window and so forth. Even though I watered them a day and a half ago, they're dry. So I want to give them a little more of a shot. Now I know in my last video I showed you the sprayer bottle I have and the little watering can, but every once in a while I give them a shot of water by the sink. And I know, in general, you don't want to saturate your Coleus. You don't want to do that all the time. You don't want to let your Coleus, regardless of especially if it's young, but even a regular potted Coleus, you do not want to leave the soil saturated over and over and over again, because the roots are going to rot. So this is where and I don't want to make it sound difficult, because it's not. So you skip your day. Look at your Coleus. Every instant is different. Sun, heat, and so forth. Get to know the weight of your Coleus. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to sort of show you what I do, how I say to myself, what do I do? Do I need to spray these, or do I need to give them a little bit more shot of water? Because I don't want to lose these guys either. I don't think I'm gonna. I've been doing this fairly long time, so I have a good idea, but I still get scared. I don't want to lose my little guys. It's put a lot of work in, I'm sure, just like you guys. So let's go take a look, and I'll show you what I'm going to do now. All right, so before we get into that, I just wanted to showcase this one Coleus. Is this beautiful? That's beautiful. That's a gorgeous Coleus. And this one I know I'm going to end up putting directly into a decorative pot. And it's going to fill out to be a beautiful, beautiful Coleus. Look at the color on that. I just love that. It's really a beautiful, beautiful Coleus. So, all right. So now let's go take a look and see how we get these watered. Okay. So here we are. Here's one tray I just picked out, and I can tell. I can tell sort of by looking at the soil. And the weight of the tray, it's just very light. It's not tremendously light where they would have really neglected them, because I did water them 2 days ago, day and a half. This is moisture retention soil, so I'm not really overly concerned, but I got to keep up on them. So what I'm doing now again, if you look over by my bay windows where I keep my trays, each level I change them, I move them up and down and so forth. But these were sort of in more of a direct sun for the past 2 days, so they're going to be a little more drier. And I have a few trays that aren't quite as bad as this, but this one's kind of dry. You can see, I could feel it. You can see it's sort of dry. It's sort of pushing away from the corners there, so I could tell, and this is just from years of experience, when they need water, and if it really gets serious, sometimes they'll start to curl a little bit. Your leaves will start to curl. I mean, these are not in danger of dying. They're not unhealthy, but I want to keep up on top of them. So what I do every once in a while is I make sure that they get a good drink. Now, you have options, of course. There's the bottom watering system. They have actually trays that you can keep your plants moist with the bottom watering, but I like to water them myself. So every once in a while, I'll take them over to the sink, and I'll just gently use, not warm water, as close to room temperature water as you can get. Now, I mentioned when you're using watering pots and so forth, try to let the water sit room temperature. But I understand everyone's busy, and sometimes you don't have time to sit, and how long they have to wait for the water to become room temperature. So just don't put ice cold water or hot water. Absolutely don't use hot water. But don't use ice cold water on your plants, especially if they're young. So basically what I do every once in a while when needed, I will give these a gentle shot of water from the sprayer. So let's go take a look how I did now. And I just did this one, and this was a very light tray. This was on the same rack as this one, and it was very a lot of them were very light. You could clearly see, and you can pick up each pot. Whoops, you could pick up each pot. I hate when this happens. You could pick up each pot, and you could feel the weight, and that's how you really get to know your Coleus plants. How you know when it's time to give them water, because like I said, we have life, and sometimes you get busy. You're like, did I watered them yesterday? I can't remember, whatever. So just get to know the weight of your trays or the weight of your pots, the looks and so forth, and the look of your Coleus, and you'll do fine. So, all right, so let's go take a look. I'll show you what I do here. Okay, so I mean, everybody I'm sure has a little hose attached to their sink. If not, then use a pot. I mean, but generally I use this because it gets it done. I have it. It's what I would consider room temperature water. Adjust it a little bit. I don't have it coming out tremendously quick. I don't have a real high. This is a very gentle stream shower, and I just go from each one. I don't shower the plant itself, but I basically I fill it, until it's like a little pool. And then I'll let it soak right down. Let's get a little closer in here. We'll show you one right here. Just give it enough there like that. And you can see I go right down. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this also. I want to make sure, now these are not germinations anymore. Now these are getting to be juvenile plants. These are like teenagers, right? And the roots are getting pretty well established. And what I want to do, and I touched on this earlier on my other videos, is I want to make sure that I promote root growth. Now, you could spoil your roots by just giving it a little bit of water, because they don't have to go looking for it. You know, it's like giving a kid candy instead of having them go out looking for it, right? I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but basically by saturating, or I don't want to use the word saturating, but by getting the water throughout all of the soil, you're going to promote, you're going to train, whatever word you want to use, promote root growth. You're going to want to get that root system out to cover all of the soil, so it's got a strong, healthy root system. And that's the name of the game when you're dealing with most plants. Grass, whatever. I touched on this in another early video. You want to water deeply grass. You don't want to start if you're running sprinklers, you don't want to run them for 7 minutes and just get the superficial layer of your soil wet. You want to promote deep grass roots. And you do that by watering deeply. So this is the same concept, but being more careful. But these pots are drained pots. That's another important thing. Make sure whatever pots you use in your Coleus for any plants, make sure that you're using pots that have drainage holes and that the soil you're using is a good quality, well-drained soil. So again, just as I had mentioned, I give it enough water that I make sure that all of the soil is getting wet. Enough that it's going to soak down, that I know that the Coleus, the roots that are deep in this pot now are going to get their share of water. Otherwise, they'll dry up and die. So I do this every few days, every once in a while when I see the Coleus get to this point. Okay, so it's very important. Shut this water off here. It's important that you, that you water your Coleus. And one thing also you can, when you have, make sure you, again, I mentioned have well-drained pots. I use these catering trays for a number of reasons. Also, so you can see, with well-drained pots, whatever water is not needed is going to run through onto the bottom of the tray. And I'll leave that water there because it's going to evaporate. It's not going to harm it. You don't want to water these at night. That's another thing. You don't want to water them now it's winter now. You don't want to water them at 6 p.m. and then have them sitting drenched for hours and hours on end. I mean, I have a grow light on them, but it's early afternoon. I'm giving them a shot of water. I'm not concerned with this. If there's a lot of water in this tray, can drain a little bit of it. But that's another pointer on why I like to use these catering trays. So make sure you properly water your Coleus. Keep track, and again, it depends on how many you're growing. I grow a lot, so I try to, and again, I touched on this earlier in the video, how I'm living a life. This is my a hobby that I really enjoy. I don't look at it as a business. I do have the farmer's market that I do, but this is a passion that I have. So you can see these are doing really well. Really, really well. These are Coleus that I just took down from the racks, and you can see how they're all facing towards the light. And again, I touched on this on my video, and I like to repeat it because that's how people learn. Is I will put these trays back in, and the Coleus, I'll put them in facing away towards the inside of the home. So they're facing away from the light. And I have my grow lights going also. Now at this point, I'm starting to wean them off of the grow light, except for the smaller ones. Now, that's another thing I do too, is I changed around, I go through the plants, and I see, hey, you know, look, this one's really small compared to the other ones. There's a couple of small ones. So I start to separate the ones that are growing a little slower than others. And I try to put them into comparable trays. And then we'll move this one here to this other tray where they're a little, where he's in with little guys that are his own age. We want to make sure we're keeping the kids with the kids and the teenagers with the teenagers and so on. So, and you can see I did this over here. This is there's a couple that aren't doing that great, but again, I'm way high 90s on my Coleus. And some other ones, these are, you can see they're doing well in the sun. There's one that's really taken off well. So, and that's what I do. Basically, that's what I do for the whole seed, you know, to see till I get them out into the greenhouse. And then, you know, then the gloves come off. These guys are really, they start to take off. And, you know, they really start taking care of themselves. Of course, you know, watering and so forth. So, but they're doing really well. I'm very, very happy with the way they're doing. I got a couple of little ornamental pots I'm making. I just threw together. Little aloe cactus, aloe plant. And again, here are some ones that I just finally separated. And I put these in here in the enclosed greenhouse with the grow light. And I keep them in here for at least another week or so till they start to, you know, they're not in shock any longer. But when you separate them, sometimes they do a little bit of shock. This really helps them bounce back. And these are doing really, really well. There's a few back there that are, I don't want to say the word struggling, but they're doing all right. I cut a couple of leaves that weren't doing too well. And you can absolutely do that. I mentioned that in my other videos. You might see a leaf that's kind of doesn't look good. You can cut it. I don't start pruning at this point. I mentioned before. I just really look at each plant, glance through them. If I see a leaf that's not doing too well, I cut it, and it's just going to promote growth. You see this one here. You can argue maybe that's a leggier plant. You're going to get that. You're just going to get plants that are maybe a little more leggy than others. And I know, say, well, legginess is caused by lack of light. Yeah, it's true, but as you can see, I don't think there's a lack of light here. This guy's getting all the light in the world. It's just his nature. It's the nature of this particular Coleus. There's a couple here too. There's a few that are quote leggy, but there was a few here that I cut some leaves off so they look more leggy because I cut the leaves down below because they were dead or they were shriveled and so forth. So, but these all bounce back. They'll do fine. They're doing well. So. All right, so those of you following along, I'm hoping that everything is going well with you guys, with all your plants too, whether it's 5 or 50 or what have you. Again, turn them around. You can see this is kind of light. This one's next in line. I'm going to give this one a shot of water too, and then I'll move this one down below and so forth. This one I'm going to, that one I'm trying to really be careful with that. That really should be in the indoor greenhouse, I think. I may move that, because these are pretty tender. These are really, really tender. And again, I just separated those. I think not even a week ago. I think it's just been a few days. So, all right. So, any questions or comments? I enjoy the comments, as I always say. Appreciate everyone following along. And the really good stuff's just yet to come. This is just, I'm just getting you guys started. I'm trying to guide everybody through, get their plan started, and then you can decide what you want to do. And I'll be doing videos, all sorts of things. Once we get outside, we're going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to show you how I make the pots and hanging baskets, what plants I decide and so forth, and what goes where. So this might be a little bit washed out, but here's a beautiful green. Almost like an electric green, but I think that's a black stockings coming up. It's a few black stockings. I'm real happy I got seeds from them. So, okay, so thanks for following along. Any questions or comments, leave them at the end. Please subscribe, pass my channel along. Again, I'm pretty active on Instagram. Primarily my Coleus. I throw some other things in there, but you know, YouTube, again, I'm trying to keep my YouTube channel strictly Coleus. So again, if you're following along, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you in a week or so. Have a good weekend.